Welcome to this edition of the Houston Roundball Review Takeover of the Lunch Break, powered by JM&E. In addition to YouTube, the Takeover is available on Roku via the BS3 Network. I am, of course, KG Kris Gardner, owner of the Houston Roundball Review. And joining me is Andy Yanez from Paul Slamma Jamma and Let's Rage Coogs. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Chris. Just saw Team USA come away with the 2-0 victory in the Group of 32 stage and now advance to the round of 16, could say the Sweet 16 of the FIFA World Cup against Belgium. It'll be interesting to see how they do on Monday, but I'm doing great summer, officially July 1st, which means that we are less than 2 months away from football season, college football season. So exciting time.
Indeed. And before I forget, real quick, of course, if you are watching via the BS3 Network, if you're watching on Roku, thank you very much for doing that. And if you have Roku, appreciate that. Download the BS3 TV app. If you don't, just go to bs3network.com or bs3tvlive.com. And let me see, Andy, sometimes I have it available, sometimes I don't. Let's see, I'll just do this right here. Everybody, there you go, bs3network.com or bs3tvlive.com. Should be a kind of action-packed, brief show today on the Takeover, this Throwback Thursday edition. We're recording it Wednesday, and as Andy noted, we recorded after U.S. men's national team won 2-0 over Bosnia-Herzegovina. And so it's late Wednesday as we're doing this. We want to wait for the match to end. And were you nervous when the red card was issued and all that? It was 10 men for the last 30 minutes?
Yeah, that red card on Balogun was questionable. I guess by the letter of the law, it was a red card, and you could see Team USA right after that happened. It kind of looked like they were a little discombobulated, and the hydration break probably came at the best time for Team USA. They were able to kind of serve like a timeout, right? They were able to calm down, regroup, and they finished the rest of the second half with only 10 players, and they were able to hang on and add an additional goal for the 2-0 victory. A little nervous just because they looked a little shocked might not be the right word, but like I said, they were a little disorganized right after the red card. But they did what they were supposed to. They were favored coming into this game. They came away with the victory. Now it gets a little bit harder into the round of 16 stage against Belgium, and that's going to be very interesting to see how they do without arguably their best player, second best player. Obviously, you gotta give Pulisic there, maybe 1A, 1B when it comes to Team USA soccer. Yep. But most definitely for Team USA, they finally got that. They had lost 10 games straight, I think, going back to 2021 against European teams, so they got that
right
away. And they have to do it again against Belgium. They probably are going to be favored regardless heading into the game, but I'm a little iffy about it. But we shall see. And if they can beat Belgium, get into the Elite Eight, and got to use college basketball terms for this. But if they can be one of those final 8, what a tremendous success story for Team USA this season. And really, I mean, they've looked good for. Look at how they started the tournament with the 4-1 victory over Paraguay, who turned around and beat Germany. So I was a little nervous, but they did what they were supposed to. Now we'll see how they look on Monday in the round of 16, and maybe make a little history getting into the final 8.
And salute to Malik Tillman. That goal.
Oh my goodness!
I mean, free kick goal. That was beautiful, man. I am not a striker in any shape or form, but I know a great kick when I see one. that was a beautiful kick, man. And it was interesting. The announcer said about the keeper, he's left the right side open, a lot to the right side. And sure enough, the Tillman bent it just over the free kick wall, and it kept bending and bending. The keeper got a hand on it, but wasn't enough to keep it out of the net. So 2-0 victory for the U.S. men's team. Balogun won't be playing against Belgium, so that's going to make a difference, I think. As you said, I think Belgium will be the favorite, probably would have been the favorite anyway, but still playing in Seattle. Maybe the crowd can hype them up and carry USA on to the round of 8. We're going to talk basketball for the majority of the takeover today. And as you're watching Thursday, audience on YouTube or Roku or Andy, remember to set it up so we can try to have it on Pasta Majama on Twitter as well. I got to ask you, man, we kind of texted it briefly, but your thoughts on the Boston-Philadelphia trade, Jaylen Brown going to Philly from Boston for Paul George and just some picks, a couple of first-round picks, basically.
What is Boston doing? What are they thinking? How do you trade your second best player who carried you when Jason Tatum was injured, missed 3/4 of the season, and the Boston Celtics were expected to possibly be, at best, a play-in team heading into the season because they weren't going to have Jason Tatum for a bulk of the season.
Right.
And led by Jaylen Brown, they were in the conversation for one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. They finished with the second seed in the East. Granted, they had a very, very, very disappointing loss to Philadelphia in the first round of the NBA playoffs. But you're not a second seed without Jaylen Brown, and you give him away for Paul George? How old is Paul George?
34, 36, something like that. Yeah.
And picks?
Injury-prone Paul George.
And now the picks
34 as of May. No,
picks,
36 as of May. I'm sorry, 36 as of May.
What are the Celtics doing? I do not understand that. That is a move you make if you know what, we're going to rebuild. We're going to probably take a season or two where we're just going to take a lot of losses. But you have Jason Tatum. Earlier, we're recording this on Wednesday, July 1st. They signed Mitchell Robinson. A good signing for Boston because it adds much needed big man depth for the Celtics and makes the Knicks worse because you poach from New York. And then you give away Jaylen Brown for what's the old saying, pennies on the dollar? Yep. I do not understand that. You're telling me that's the best trade. And then on top of that, you send them to Philadelphia. You're sending them to the 76ers, the team that eliminated you in the first round of the playoffs, that you're going to be competing with, you would assume, in the Eastern Conference. And again, for pennies on, I do not understand that trade by Boston. And I think that kudos to Philadelphia because they turned Paul George into Jaylen Brown. And now you have a core of Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, and Jaylen Brown. That's a great three in the Eastern Conference.
Well, VJ Edgecombe, because big fella Joel Embiid is battling injuries and health issues as well. Yes. So let's go the younger route.
I mean, look, imagine if that trio of guards, I mean, just with those three alone, you would imagine, barring any health concerns, you're at least a top 5 seed in the East.
Yep. I don't. This is a trade. Summer really just started. It was like a panic move.
Yeah.
If things were so bad, and Jaylen Brown, from everything heard, did not ask to be traded. Even after Boston pursued Giannis and put Jaylen in that deal, Jaylen Brown did not ask to be traded. So why trade him to Philly in July? Was this all the best you could get? Just wait. Ride it out. Talk to him. Bring him into the office face to face. Jaylen, we put you in a few trade offers and nothing really struck our fancy or whatever. So we're going to keep you and hope you maintain your professionalism and play as hard as you can during the season. Now something else comes up better, then okay. But to make this deal on July 1, what was the hurry? What's the rush? I don't care, about the analytics people. Someone in Boston front office said he was the seventh best player on the team, whatever. Oh, whatever. I think that's ludicrous. He wasn't an efficient player. Okay, there's a lot of stars who aren't efficient players. But saying all that, why trade him now? Just wait. Wait until the season starts. Let him play well. If his trade stock is low right now, let him raise his stock and do something else later on during the season or in February. But to do this trade, pennies on the dollar, maybe a penny on the dollar, 1 penny. But the irony is, 2 Houston Cougars are in Boston. One was drafted there in Kris Cenac Jr. Another one, Milos Uzan, on a Exhibit 10 contract. He has to play his way to become a two-way player, two-way contract. I'm not surprised Jaylen Brown got traded. I'm surprised this is all they got for Jaylen Brown on July 1. So your thoughts, so forget about that part. Your thoughts on Kris and Milos being with the Celtics now.
Well, based on the move, again, it's usually you see moves like that from a team that's ready to rebuild or retool, which is very interesting considering they still have Jason Tatum. And again, they were just the second seed in the Eastern Conference. In terms of Kris and Cenac, I think this is a really, really great opportunity for him because I think he's going to have a great opportunity to go in there and compete for minutes. And it'll be interesting to see what Boston looks like because, again, what I said previously, heading into this past season, there were not a lot of high expectations for Boston because of the Jason Tatum injury.
Right.
Now, this season is a little bit interesting because their roster, they really are kind of in between just the championship team they had a couple years ago. And they're in a bit of a transition phase. And how that bodes well for Kris Cenac is he's going to have an opportunity to, under a coach that I would imagine, right, it's pretty, based on what I've seen, right, we're not in there in everyday practice, but Joe Mazzulla seems like a very, very similar structure-wise, and maybe in terms of just coaching styles to Kelvin Sampson, which is going to bode well for Kris Cenac, in my opinion. And I think now, again, basing it on July 1st, we're recording this, just a lot of the unknown with Boston. I think Kris Cenac is going into an opportunity to develop, compete for minutes, and potentially a not only just a role, but a pretty significant role for Boston, in my opinion. And the key for him is, we saw it in the Sweet 16 loss for Houston against Illinois. Like the Fighting Illini dared Kris Cenac. Like that was their game plan. We're going to give up the short corner shot to Kris Cenac, and if he hits it, then we'll tip our hats. And unfortunately for Houston and Cenac, he really, really struggled in that Sweet 16 game. Granted, he was a freshman. He's going to be 19 years old at the beginning for Boston, so he still has so much untapped potential. And I think he's going into, moves aside, trade aside, I think he's going into a pretty good situation in terms of coaching staff. And to be honest, I'm kind of surprised that he fell as far as he did in the first round, all the way pick 29th. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think he's the 27th pick in the first round. I think there's, again, an opportunity for him to develop and maybe not necessarily as high expectations because it's not like he's a lottery pick. So I think it's a pretty good opportunity for him. As for Milos Uzan, it's going to be, and at the end of the day, it's an opportunity for him to showcase not just for the Celtics, but for the other 29 teams in the NBA, because he is really, really going to have to go out there and put a lot on film in the summer league. And whether it's Boston, whether it's another team, he's got a lot more of a tougher road in terms of being able to get to an NBA roster. He signed with Boston on an Exhibit 10 deal, so not necessarily not a guaranteed contract. He has to go out there and he still has to prove himself.
Right.
I think it'll be interesting to see just summer league, how those two play in the summer league. Obviously, they're going to have some chemistry, but for Milos, Uzan, again, that was kind of the Achilles heel for this Houston team this past season, but he just wasn't able to be a consistent enough threat as a scoring threat for Houston, and that really hurt the Cougars, because they just ultimately, at the end of the day, what did them in that Sweet 16 loss is there were just not enough players that were able to make shots against Illinois, and Milos Uzan was one of those players that struggled, not just in that NCAA tournament game, but throughout the season, where he was very, very up and down, and he was a very, very streaky shooter. And in order for him to make it to an NBA roster, he's going to have to show that this past season was much more of a fluke, per se, rather than who he is as a player. Because at the end of the day, you have to put the ball through the basket to be able to play in the NBA.
And he'll have to hopefully play. Well, he's with Boston now on the Exhibit 10 deal, but he's a point guard. His role changed with Kingston Flemings on the team for the Coogs this past season.
Yeah.
And Milo's 3-point shot just was not consistent at all this past year. But as a point guard, he's not a high turnover guy. So if he can stick with that, that'll be a help. Play well enough in Boston to maybe get a two-way deal in Boston, or maybe get an opportunity with somebody else in the NBA and just fight his way up the ranks that way. But let's talk about Kingston Flemings getting drafted at 8 to Atlanta. Your thoughts on that?
I love it. I love the fit for Kingston Flemings, especially when you're talking about a guy like CJ McCollum right there in the backcourt. It's, I would imagine, will really do a lot for him just in terms of guidance and showing him the ropes. And he's a really good player, per se, on his own, that's going to really help Kingston Flemings develop. I think he fits perfectly with an Atlanta Hawks team that overachieved, and by all intents and purposes, they completely overachieved this past season and ended up being the toughest challenge for the New York Knicks in the NBA playoffs. Mm-hmm. In that run. I just love it. I think you'd be more, you would know more than me, but I feel like he has an opportunity to compete for a starting spot in Atlanta.
Eventually, yes. I mean, that's the ultimate plan for him. But CJ McCollum's a great vet. He learned from him. I mean, if Kingston excels like he did when he stepped on the floor for the Cougs in the summer, who knows if he does that well and surprises so well with the Hawks. But, ultimately, I think it's a good fit. The Hawks are a franchise that finally seems to have figured it out, what it takes to win on both ends of the floor, offensively and defensively. Because when Trae Young was there, Trae Young, what did Kelvin Sampson always say about guys in defense? Their idea of defense was the thing that goes around the yard. That was Trae Young, defense. Kingston Flemings, obviously, he's going to be a better defender because he learned how to play defense here as a Coug. Lastly, Emanuel Sharp, Sacramento, second-round pick. How about him? Teammate of Darius Acuff.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Real quickly, one last point in terms of Kingston Flemings. I think the other thing I like about him going to the Hawks is that the head coach, Quinn Snyder. I think he's a great coach, and I think that's another benefit that Kingston will have, being under that head coaching staff that they can help develop them. In terms of Kingston, Emanuel Sharp, I should say, going to the Sacramento Kings. I think it's interesting, just in terms of they obviously are a team that's really in rebuild mode. So Emanuel Sharp gets a chance to go in there and just compete for minutes. And it'll be interesting to see how he does starting in the summer league. He spent his entire career he went the full distance at Houston. So him going to Sacramento, he might be more ready from day one compared to maybe some of a traditional draft pick. And we've seen a similar path for him was just laid by Jamal Shed a season ago with the Toronto Raptors and what he was able to do and come in for the Raptors and become a pretty crucial role player for Toronto, even in their playoff run. And you saw Jamal Shed guarding, in crunch time, guarding James Harden multiple times in the NBA playoffs and coming away with pretty big defensive plays. I think that's something that Emanuel Sharp has the potential to bring for the table. Now, I don't think that the Sacramento Kings will be a playoff team, but never say never. We just saw literally this past season some teams that made surprise runs. I think Emanuel Sharp and the skills that he excels at can transition to not just success for Sacramento, but success in any NBA team. And that's 3-D. That Emanuel Sharp is going to for sure give you really, really good defense night in and night out. I think sometimes his three-point shooting could be a little streaky, but we shall see. I think he's going to have a great opportunity to in a different way, right? They're different players in terms of him and Jamal Shed's game, but I think he has a pretty good opportunity to transition himself to be a solid role player in the NBA if he's able to be consistent three-point shooting throughout his career. I think that's going to be the key for him in terms of how long he's able to stay in the NBA. But I think that, his skills and what he does well could translate to success for just about any team, whether it's for Sacramento or for any other team. And it's funny that he ended up going to the Kings because we brought up Kingston Flemings. I like the fit for Flemings much more in Atlanta compared to Sacramento, just because of the track record and how Sacramento, based on track record, they've really, really struggled for damn near 20 years now in the NBA. And
they do have new people in charge and personnel, so
yeah,
they seem to have a better plan. BJ Armstrong and Scott Perry are highly respected. BJ was a hell of a player and now moved up the ranks in the personnel department. They're not going to get Jalen Duren, but that's beside the point. But anyway, yeah. But Emanuel Sharp, Darius Acuff, I think they could develop some chemistry there, and Alex Caravan there is another rookie with the Kings. Let's see if they can become the Kings rather than the Kangs, as they've been for much of the last 20 years. They got to get rid of some of that old money spent to the veterans that they're still hanging on to and turned over to the young fellas. But, one Coug who is going to begin year 2 of his NBA career is LJ Cryer. He spoke with the media on Monday after, I guess, was well, as far as we're concerned, the Warriors' first workout of Summer League, as Warriors get ready for the California Classic, hosted by them and the Sacramento Kings. So those games, I think, start on the 4th, and then they play 2 or 3 games there, and then they join everybody else in Vegas for the NBA Summer League. But here are some comments from LJ Cryer, as you are watching me, Kris Gardner, and Andy Yanez on this edition of the Houston Roundball Review Takeover of the Lunch Break, Throwback Thursday. You're watching on YouTube or Roku or Twitter. Yes, we got different platforms, destinations, and we're going to talk about that too as we get ready for football season and basketball season, and ask you to reach out and support us for this coming season. But here are comments from LJ Cryer.
The main thing for me is just like getting my body healthy, because when I'm healthy, I'm able to help the team. So, it was a lot of guys unavailable this year, and with me being a younger guy, I just got to be more available, and then just build off of what I did last year. Continue to make shots, and be more confident in my game offensively, and then as I get more healthy, be able to go pick up the ball full court defensively, impact the game on that side. But I felt like I wasn't able to do that as much due to my health and stuff. So the more healthy I get, I feel like the more I'll be able to bring to the table. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, LJ, I just want to know what was your reaction to seeing some of your former teammates get drafted, and how you feeling about potentially playing them in summer league or sometime down the line on the NBA floor?
I'm definitely proud of all those guys. I've seen how hard that they work to get to this level, and we've been through a lot of wars together. So them getting drafted, I felt like I was getting drafted after seeing it. So definitely proud of them, and can't wait to be able to compete against them one day.
So speaking of Kelvin Sampson, he says from time to time how he likes to keep up with his former players and text them or call them during the season. Was there any advice or anything of note that he would tell you, as you were kind of navigating the G League and the NBA last season as a rookie?
Just continue to be me. He knows how tough I am and how hard I play, and he always tells you to never lose your chip. Continue to play with a chip on your shoulder, no matter how much success you're having or how many people telling you how good or great you are or whatever after a single game, stuff like that. So just carrying that mindset to never lose your chip, and I feel like that stuck with me, and I'm going to continue to carry that throughout the rest of my career.
Comments from LJ Cryer. Andy, what are your thoughts on what LJ said?
Well, let me start on that last soundbite in terms of advice. Was a question about anything noteworthy that head coach Kelvin Sampson might have told him through the course of the season. Always staying hungry. Even we've heard Coach Sampson say this a lot over the course of years of availabilities, just in terms of people will always tell you how great you are. Sometimes they might tell you how great you're, how the opposite, right? How terrible you are, and you always have to kind of just put your head down and keep hitting the rock. It's one of the phrases that he always liked to say, and it's something that he said a week or two ago when he had his availability, and it was actually Kim Davis who asked the question to Coach Sampson, any advice that he'd given to the current group of draftees for Houston. And you always got to stay humble, and greatness always has a return address. Don't ever forget where you came from. So it's good to see from players, even LJ Cryer all the way in San Francisco with the Golden State Warriors, still reiterating the same message from Coach Sampson. It's kind of awesome to see the impact that Coach Sampson has on these guys, honestly, for the rest of their lives, regardless of how far their pro basketball journeys might take them. In terms of LJ Cryer, hearing him talk about kind of his focus for this upcoming season after his rookie year, and being available, an old saying, right? The best availability is being to actually be available, right? In terms of health, and for LJ Cryer, potentially he might have a there's a lot of rumors going around in terms of what that Golden State roster might look like for this upcoming season.
Old.
I mean, if that's the case, LJ Cryer better stay ready, because again, for the skill sets that he brings, and pretty similar to Emanuel Sharp, just in terms of shooting and defense, he could potentially play a very pivotal role for these Golden State Warriors, if depending on what their roster shakes up to be, and you just have to stay ready. And I mean, he had a pretty decent rookie season, and looking at the numbers, kind of like how he touched on in terms of health wise, he only played 18 games in the NBA, but was able to put together 8 points, shot 39% from the 3-point line. That's something to build on for him, and it'll be interesting to see how he's able to take that leap into year 2, and it starts in the summer league, and hopefully he is able to stay healthy, because depending on what that roster looks like and what they have to give up, depending on how many moves they make, LJ Cryer might find himself being a key piece to Golden State, depending on how old or how much movement there is in the offseason for their roster.
Bottom of the hour here of this edition of the Houston Roundball Review Takeover of the Lunch Break, Throwback Thursday. The Takeover is powered by JM&E, airing on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook, as well as on Roku via the BS3 Network. I'm going to play the BS3 promo, and we'll be back in 90 seconds. Me, Kris Gardner, with Andy Yanez. See you in 90 seconds.
BS3 Network, changing the way you watch TV.
Welcome back to today's edition of the Houston Roundball Review Takeover of the Lunch Break. Takeover powered by JM&E. Throwback Thursday style of the Takeover. You're watching me, Kris Gardner, and Andy Yanez on today's Takeover on either YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Roku, different platforms. And Andy and I will get into some more details about how you can reach out and advertise. But I want to thank these folks for their support of the Houston Roundball Review with the online business directory first. And I got a question for you. I'm going to put you on the spot in a minute. Get ready. But I want to give a shout out to these kind people, business owners or individuals, for supporting the Houston Roundball Review and the online business directory. They are the African Center of Wellbeing, Be Elite Basketball, Byron Riley CPA, Pantaleon Law Firm, Star Pizza, United Sports and Entertainment, VIP Realty, and the Saxenian family. And if you are interested, you can just simply email advertise at THEHRR.com. Once again, advertise at THEHRR.com. Andy Yanez, as I get back to the screen, I've thought about this. I have not asked about it anyone on staff directly about this, but with Kingston Flemings, Chris Cenac, first round picks, Marcus Sasser, who will probably be a Dallas Maverick within a few days, but you got guys, Jarris Walker, you got guys who are first round picks, you have other guys who are in the NBA, who are Coogs. I wonder, or do you think, if it hasn't already been discussed, do you think Coach Sampson, the staff, linking Coogs, the NIL people, or the players themselves should get together and contribute what they can towards Houston Cougars men's basketball NIL?
Should they? Absolutely.
Should it be structured? Should it be organized? Should it be discussed? Whatever. I don't know if it's being done, but would you agree that if it hasn't been discussed or isn't being done, it needs to be?
Yes, absolutely. And you have an ever evolving landscape in college sports that it's constantly changing. Like literally, sometimes it seems like day to day. And in order to, you hear Coach Sampson say this all the time, to be able to keep up with just the competitiveness throughout the entire college basketball landscape, and be nationally relevant, to compete for a national championship year in and year out, which Houston has been able to do now for since 2021. They've been in the mix. And the worst that they've done over the course of those handful of seasons has been a Sweet 16 loss, which, for some programs making it to the Sweet 16, that's a high watermark. And for Houston, that's been that's been the kind of become the expectation for Houston fans, which kind of shows how spoiled they are. But in all seriousness, that as the years keep going, as the seasons keep coming, it is a war. It's a battle with all the other nationally relevant programs. And at the end of the day, it's going to come down to NIL and, relationships and all the things. Yes, that's still very important to an extent, but ultimately at the end of the day, you're talking about 17, 18-year-olds who are, being offered millions and millions of dollars. And as much as, they might have a great relationship with Calvin Sampson or the Houston coaching staff, as much as they might love them, if another program is offering you who knows how many, million or a handful of thousand, hundreds of thousands of dollars more, that's not pocket change. That could potentially be generational changing wealth for these players and for their families. And you have to keep up with the times, and that's where college sports, both men's basketball, college football most definitely, and eventually the other college sports as a whole are going to be transitioning to. And for Houston, they have it's funny that you bring that up on July 1st, where Quentin just reportedly got a new deal with the Los Angeles Lakers. 4 years, $60 million. You have to take advantage of your resources, right? And for Houston, especially recently, we've how many draft picks going back to 2021 with Quentin? They have how many is it? Is it 5 or 6? It's Quentin.
I think it's 6 or 7 now. The press release with
right with this previous
or first rounders, maybe 6 or 7 first rounders. Let's see, Quentin, Jairus, Marcus, Kingston,
Jamal.
and Kris. That's 5 first rounders for sure.
And then you have
Jamal and Emanuel are second rounders. 7
picks. 5 first rounders, which that's the big deal about first round picks, is that's guaranteed contracts. And
Jamal's contract was guaranteed too.
Yeah, he had his option picked up by the Raptors, correct?
Correct, June 25th. Yep.
And Marcus Sasser, he's going to be coming up for a new contract here pretty soon. And again, you just got to take advantage of your resources. And whether we're having this conversation, they very well could already be doing something behind the scenes. We don't know.
Right.
But I say, just from the question that you asked, absolutely, that's something that you have to take advantage of your assets. And for Houston, all these current, at least under the Sampson era, right? All these current players that are all all the names that we just listed off, they're currently in the NBA. Like we just said, Quentin just got a brand new multi-year deal with the Los Angeles Lakers of all teams. So it would kind of be to not at least attempt to put together, for the lack of a better word, some type of coalition to help in NIL. It would be, it would be a very, very big missed opportunity for Houston. And ultimately, we see that all these players in the summer, they come back.
Right.
They're always in the Guy V. Lewis, or they're around the program when they can. Whenever their teams might be off, or shoot, if they're playing against the Rockets, how many times have we seen them come back to U of H and just hang around the team? Clearly, they all have good relationships with Coach Kelvin Sampson and just the program. And so I think they would, to be honest, I think they would all jump at the opportunity if it was presented to them. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I think it's something that has to be done eventually, I would imagine, just in terms of where the college sports landscape is heading. And ultimately, it's kind of an arms race, and the arms are how much NIL can you offer, these top prospects and these top recruits coming out of high school, and even in the transfer portal that we just saw. So I think ultimately, absolutely, that's something that you definitely got to look into, if not, do everything possible to put together.
And let me continue playing devil's advocate here. If it is being done already, do you think Houston, UH, the program should acknowledge it, publicize that it's being done? I'm not saying monetarily, but just, let everyone know the Houston Cougars alumni collective, whatever you want to call it, has been formed, is contributing to NIL.
That's interesting. That's a little bit of a, I wouldn't say a gray area. I would say, I don't know, thinking of all the
I mean, 'cause there are some programs, some that are more known for doing it, and then there are some that have like dark money that do it.
Yeah. It's funny because I was about to say, thinking of all the names we just listed off, I think they would prefer to keep it, quiet. I don't think they would want to be, in the spotlight or publicized. If I were, let me put my UH hat, if I was Eddie Nunez or, anyone that would oversee Coach Sampson, I think you should publicize. And the only reason I say you should is because I feel it's kind of you could kind of make it a rally cry, for lack of a better phrase, where you can go to your supporters and be like, hey, look at our players that we just sent to the NBA. Like, this is a collective effort, right? We're all in this together. Previous players that have gone on to the next level, they're playing in the NBA at the highest level of professional basketball. They still care about this program. They're doing their part. What's your excuse? Do your part, and let's try to build this as strongly as we can. And that's the only reason that I say, if you do something like that, make it.
I'm leaning more that way.
You can kind of make it a rallying cry, and keep building. That's my opinion, but again, based on the names that we listed off, they seem much more of like the low key, like we'll contribute, but
and we're not talking about publicizing the amount they are contributing, just the name of whatever you want, the name of the collective has been started, has been around for a while, whatever, is a part of the NIL for Houston Cougars men's basketball. Whatever. Like, for example, if the player wants to mentioned it publicly, that's their decision. That's their like Derek White was announced that he is donating $1 million to Colorado. Okay, that's his choice. So that's been announced. That's a public thing. Some players want it known that they are contributing to their alma mater. So some players don't. They want to keep it secret and just not have anyone else know, but just it's being done. At minimum, I would like to know that it's being done. Okay, because that is another source of revenue which Houston Athletics needs. And we're both alums. We are not flush with cash. We're not wealthy as an athletic program. So I think any way to let folks know that contributions are being made is good, is better for the program. Just get it out there and say, hey, men's basketball, and pro athletes, Cougar athletes in the NFL, Cougar athletes in whatever pro sport, have it as a Houston Cougar pro athlete collective is contributing to athletics overall, if that's what they want to do, or if it's easy to do it by sport, whatever, just do it. Just get it done, because that might help other folks say, well, I see all these millionaire pro athletes. Are they contributing? What are they doing? How come you keep asking me for giving money? Why don't you go to them? If it's known that they are contributing, then other alums might say, oh, okay, at least they're doing their part, so I don't mind helping out either. Could be as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else you want to talk about? Well, one of your opening comments, you stated it. It's July 1st as we're recording, July 2nd as people are watching on the platforms. We're getting closer and closer to football season. Big 12 Media Day. First day 1 is Tuesday, July 7th. Day 2 is July 8th. The Coogs, Coach Fritz, and some Cougar players will be on day 1. What do we say? Our prediction for wins? 10-2? Right?
Yeah, I think.
Has that changed?
In order for it, no. Shoot. See, this is a season where we're going to see whether the Houston Cougars football team really has taken the next step, or it's, I hate to say it, but if it's just, the same old Cougs. And what I mean by that is we've seen previous years, right? Houston football, they have a great season. And then heading into the following year, there's a lot of expectations. There's a lot of excitement. And they just don't quite live up to the hype. You can go back thinking to the 2015 season, and we're talking about recently, right? Peak Houston Cougars football. And in the 2016 season, they start off strong. And then they just completely, fall off at the end of that season. Granted, that was a special circumstance in terms of what the head coaching position would look like back then. We saw it in 2021 where Houston went 12-2. They made it to the American Championship game. The following season, last year in the American, right? Cincinnati lost all its players. This is our year. We're going to win the American and have a great jump into the Big 12, and they just fall flat and have a disappointing season the year after. For this year's Houston team, again, they had a great season. Double-digit wins, 10-3. They beat LSU in the Texas Bowl. Now they got to go out there and they got to prove that it wasn't a fluke, because they've had 1 year success previously and they haven't been able to build on it. And for Houston football, in order to take that next step, they have to continue to set the bar. Like Houston Cougars men's basketball, they've been able to sustain that success for damn near a decade now. And that's what Willie Fritz is trying to do with the football program. And we looked at the schedule, what is it, a month or two ago now. It seems you lose track of these days. On paper, when we looked at it, and even on July 1st, before a single game has been played, it looks like they don't have a relatively hard schedule. both in conference play and most definitely when it comes to their non-conference opponents. At the end of the day, it's going to come down to we're going to know where this Houston Cougars football team is after the first conference game of the season. Because at the end of the day, you have to go up there to Lubbock and you got to beat Texas Tech. That's the next step. That's something that they weren't able to do last season. That was one of the 3 losses. You have to finally be able to go and beat them, which, Texas Tech coming off a year where they won the Big 12. They were the best team in football last season. If Houston wants to take that next step and be legit, they have to finally beat them. And that's ultimately not to say that an entire season is going to be defined, whether it's successful or not, based on that one game. But I think that's really going to define this upcoming football season, just in terms of where they're at. This past season, when they played Texas Tech, it wasn't really close. Connor Wigman, he got hurt in that game, but Texas Tech was kind of having its way before he got hurt. I still think that at minimum 10-2 regular season should be the baseline, and I quite frankly, I think it should be higher than that based on their schedule again as of July 1st on paper with these opponents that they have. And they do have a lot coming back, starting with QB1. You haven't had just the continuity that Houston Cougars football is having in a really, really long time. Since 21-22, when they brought back Clayton Tune and Tank Dell, which part of the reason they made that season the following year after they made the American Championship game sort of disappointing, because they had a lot of key pieces coming back. And now, granted, that season the offense played well and the defense just fell off a cliff. This season, for the 2 years that Willie Fritz has been at the helm at Houston, the defense has been legit both of those seasons. And the first year under Willie Fritz, the defense damn near, if it wasn't for that defense, Houston might have gone 2-10 that season, if not worse. And they were really strong this past season as well. So, you would expect them to continue that trend. And again, bringing back the key pieces, starting with Wegman, who's the most important just in terms of the offense and the continuity. You're bringing back Amari Thomas. You're bringing back a handful of key pieces. And there'll be new faces as well. And just building off the momentum and success. I think we're gonna see whether it's really Houston football finally taking that next step and starting to build a true program, or hopefully this is not the case, but hopefully it's not just same old Coogs. They had one good season and then didn't necessarily live up to the hype. And I think the opportunity is right there for Houston football to take the reins, because with the schedule, with the continuity, I think head coach Willie Fritz and his coaching staff is very, very different from previous regimes. I don't expect him, cross your fingers, I don't expect him to get poached towards the end of the season to cause any conflict. And most definitely, I don't expect him to be like the previous, double-digit win season Houston had and that coaching staff. So I expect the continuity to happen. But we shall see. There's a lot of excitement. And hopefully it's the start of another great and potentially historic football season, because if Houston finally beats Texas Tech, shoot, you could really have a legit possibility of them not only battling in the Big 12 for the Big 12 championship, but benefits of being in a Power 5 conference. If they win the Big 12 conference, shoot, then we're talking CFP appearances. So not to get way too ahead of myself, but I think there's a lot of
But you are,
excitement.
because you're excited about this season. So that's good.
Exactly.
All right,
That's
real quick, I want to put this on the screen, and of course, encourage everybody to get some Houston Roundball Review merch. And branding is important. So mugs, tumblers, tank tops, T-shirts, short sleeve shirts, all that kind of stuff. Also, encourage you to become a Houston Roundball Review YouTube member. All League tier, All World tier, 2 different price points. All League is $2.99. All World is $4.99. You can scan that QR code, or if you're watching on YouTube, just click the join button and go from there. Mr. Yanez, how can folks find you? And I'm going to put this on the screen. Let's see here. First, I believe this is correct, right? For advertising,
Yes,
Let's
sir.
Rage Coogs at gmail.com. That's one way to do that. If you want to be part of the Let's Rage Coogs post-game show, the original post-game show for Houston football and men's basketball. But also, sir, is this good enough for you for your socials?
Yes, sir. That's perfect. You can follow me on X at Ayonas_5, the Potsdamer Jamma X channel as well. It's PAWDSLAMA JAMA. It's kind of like riding a bike. You never forget to reading off the social media handles. Also follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Let's Rage Coogs. On both platforms, it's all lowercase Let's Rage Coogs. And we're excited. Like I said, less than 2 months for the beginning of college football season, and talking, Houston Cougars men's basketball. They had some availability in the summer, and talking to one of people on staff, right? We talked about, I just asked him out of curiosity, hey, you got any vacation plans? They were like, no, no vacation plans. And it's true. Once August rolls around, football starts they don't call it training camp, but fall camp. September, football season starts. September is also when or end of September, early October is when men's basketball starts their official fall camp, right? And then before you know it, we're in November, and it's, lo and behold, basketball season, peak of football season, and the sprint continues. So for me, I don't know about you, Kris, but my favorite part of the year is always the fall. That October, November, December, those are my favorite months of the year. So I just can't wait. And if we're always looking for sponsors. I'm excited for football season. Hopefully being able to build off the success last year, and hopefully we're able to do more stuff, just in terms of being out there at the games, potentially, there's unlimited opportunities that we can do just in terms of technology, and being able to have this. With this, you can do a lot of different things in the moment. So if you are interested in sponsoring either for Let's Rage Coogs, do so. Let's Rage Coogs at gmail.com, or right here on Houston Roundball Review as well. You can reach out to Kris. Big thank you, Kris, for asking me to be here on the show. I always am thankful for the opportunity to be in here and be on the Houston Roundball Review Takeover. So big thank you for the opportunity, and it was awesome to talk sports.
My pleasure, my man. I appreciate you joining me, and I got a few ideas. See if we can get this growing, the Takeover growing on Roku via the BS3 Network as well. But we will need some assistance with advertisers on that to make it happen completely. But this show, as we're doing it, is being recorded in landscape and portrait mode. So if everything goes well, you can see it in different ways and different platforms. So we can expand the audience and the reach. And salute to everyone who has viewed the Houston Roundball Review Facebook page. June views over 100,000.
Wow.
April over 100,000. May was 50,000. So the last 3 months, 250,000 views on the Houston Roundball Review Facebook page. So advertise at THEHRR.com and you will be seen. Believe me, trust me, you will be seen on Facebook. You will be seen on Roku, YouTube, Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok. Advertise at THEHRR.com. That will do it for this edition of the Houston Roundball Review Takeover of the Lunch Break. Kudos to AJ Jones for allowing me and Andy this platform. And until next Thursday, spread the word. And everyone knows this. Since 1994, the Houston Roundball Review. Local name, global perspective. Everyone, take care. Peace.